Matt Karasek here with a tutorial on some of the Google Meet updates. So the first thing you want to do is go to meet.google.com and you're going to put in a nickname, and that is the password you will give students in order to access your Google Meet or your Google Room, whatever you want to call it. So I'm just going to put in Karasek Beta. Now when I click continue, I am now creating a room that nobody else can access except me until I share it. Now, even if I share that and the student goes to meet.google.com and puts in the Karasek beta code, if I'm not in the room, they cannot get in the room. It'll say, sorry, meeting's not in progress or something like that. So until I click this join button, they will not be able to enter into my room. And this includes staff as well. So the only person that is allowed in it first is the person that creates that Google Meet. One thing before you click join is that when if you wanted to live stream, let's say you wanted students to watch but not participate in your Google meeting, you can actually add an in-house live stream, and then you get a little URL. Then you can share that, kind of like for a board meeting or something. You don't want them participating in it, but you want them to watch it. So you can share that URL with them so they can see the live stream. Okay, a couple other things before you do that. This is the only one you cannot change after you click join. I'm not sure why that is, but once you click join, you no longer have that as an option. So then you'd have to leave the room and then come back, or leave the meeting and come back. Otherwise, all of these other things are in the Google Meet when you click the join. And I'll show you the blur in a second. Actually, you can kind of see it right now. So in Google Meet, one of the new features is I can turn blurring on and blurring off. Now, if I'm a student, that's going to be nice because let's say they're in their bedroom, they can turn the blur feature on, and now other students and staff or teachers cannot see their room. They just see the student. So that's kind of a nice new feature, not quite like Zoom where you can change the background completely, but at least it's something. So once I click join, now students, if they were to click the join button and put in Karasek beta, they would now be allowed into it. And again, like I said, once I click this leave button, then it automatically kicks everybody out of the room and they can no longer get back in until I rejoin. Now, one quick thing, if you are one that shares the URL, that changes every time I leave and come back. Even if I use that password stays the same. I'm always able to get into it, and students are able to get into it if I'm in it. But this always changes. Unless you set up a calendar event that is repeated, then that stays the same. So let's say you set it up for Fridays at 9 a.m., then every Friday at 9 a.m. they could click this link. They would still have to type in the nickname or passcode, whatever we want to call it, in order to get into this Google Meet. Okay, so on to some of the other features, more security features. This blue button that's hiding behind the tools, you can click the quick access, which basically closes the room. You can click turn these off, share the screen, and send a chat message. You can still do those as a host, so I can still share my screen, I can still chat with my students or send a message to my students, but when I click this off, my students and anybody else in the room will not be able to do that. Another feature, a couple other features. So when you click this, the 3 button, we now have access to Whiteboard. Open a Jamboard, they call it a Jamboard. So it's basically an interactive whiteboard. So start a new whiteboard, opens up a new tab, and whoever's in this meeting will be able to participate. And I haven't played around much with this, to be honest with you, but I think you can also turn off the share settings for this, for the participants in this. So you can turn it on or turn it off for those in the Google Classroom. Okay, or in the Google Meet, excuse me. You can record your meeting. That's always been there. The nice thing is when you do so and you click, if you stop the recording, you will automatically get a recording of that section. So if, let's say you record something and then you stop recording and then later on in the meeting you record again, and then you stop recording, you'll get several emails of each recording. The next thing is changing the layout. You can change the layout. You can drop it all the way down to 6, and then you should be able to get it all the way up to 49, so you can see hopefully a whole classroom of students tiled. Okay. Another feature is, and it doesn't show it here, so I'm going to click up here. You'll notice the activities button. So if I click the activities button, it opens up the chat. So if I click the chat button, I can do the same thing. But I can create breakout rooms, and I have tested this. The student does need to accept the breakout room. So if you put a student, let's say there's a list of students, I can drag and drop students in there, or I can do it randomly, right? And I can change the number of rooms there are. But when I start the session, create the session, the student does need to accept it. I tried it. I was hoping it would force them into the breakout room, but they have to accept it in order to be placed in the breakout room, and then you can obviously bring them back, and I think you can set a timer for it as well. I haven't played around as much with that yet either, but that is a new feature that we'll be able to utilize. Another tool, come on, is you can poll your students. So again, you can start a poll and ask them, what do you want for lunch today? And then they would, and you give them the choices, and they can let you know which one they choose, and then it automatically creates a Google spreadsheet, and it puts the poll results into a Google spreadsheet. And then finally, question and answer. You can ask questions, students can answer. Okay, so you can sort by which questions have been answered and whatnot. So down here, ask a question. You post it, and then they can respond to that. Okay, and again, I get a Google Sheet for that. And one last feature that has always been in Google Meet, and this is again specifically for students who are needing support in their native language. And I have a video on this, but basically if you open up the chat, or if the student opens up the chat, the student can right click. They get a host of different things, but the biggest one is translate to English. They can click the 3 button, choose their native language. So I'm just going to choose Chinese, and it automatically, didn't click translate, did I? And it automatically changes everything in the chat to Chinese. But the cooler thing for students is when they click, again, the student has to be able to do this, not you. Unless you're sharing your screen, then they would see the closed captioning. But if they click the closed captioning, I am speaking in English. However, you will notice that it automatically turns it into Chinese. Now, it is not perfect. However, it is pretty close, so my students say. Again, if you're presenting your screen, then they would be able to see it in his or her native language if you've changed it to his or her language. Otherwise, each student can right-click in the chat and then choose his or her own native language, which is pretty fantastic. Okay, so again, it's pretty accurate. So that is Google Meet, the updates in a nutshell. If you have any questions, let me just make sure. Oh, the last thing that is nice is once you are done with your Google Meet, come on. Once you are done with your Google Meet, you will actually get an attendance report sent to your email. So you don't have to click anything, it automatically comes into your email. So if I go down here, so it says info from Easter's meeting. And then if I were to preview it, it shows a list. I'm not going to show you because I just had a meeting with my Key Club students, and so there's a slew of names and emails that I don't want you to see. But if I were to click that, you would be able to see the students that were in your Google Meet. Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me at mkarasek@sawashko.org.